welcome back to the couch. I'm Dez.
And I'm Jay.
And this is our John Wick 3 review. Coming up next.
With those two bald guys.
John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum is a 2019 neo-noir action thriller directed by Chad Stahelski from a story by Derek Kolstad. It stars Keanu Reeves, Ian McShane, Halle Berry, Asia Kate Dillon, Mark Dacascos, Angelica Houston, and Lawrence Fishburne.
After gunning down members of the High Table, John Wick finds himself stripped of the organization's protective services. Now facing a $14 million bounty on his head, Wick must fight his way through the streets of New York as he's hunted down by the world's most ruthless killers. John Wick 3, man. The hit has been put on John Wick's head, and we're kind of picking up where that left off in the last film. He's kind of running throughout the city of New York trying to seek refuge.
Yeah, we pick up right away. We even back up about 45 minutes or so to kind of show more detail about the end of 2. We're back to more of a noir feel, I think, whereas in the second one, we kind of blew up into an action movie a lot more.
They blended the noir feel and the big budget action movie feel a lot better in John Wick 3. Because the first scene was a shot of the Statue of Liberty, and right after that, they showed the city of New York. And I remember thinking, the use of color in that particular shot is just beautiful, but it still felt right.
They use a lot of reds and blues and greens, and it looks great. 2 was kind of a learning step toward what they're doing in 3. The series does a good job at expanding its mythology with each chapter.
What I love about this franchise is it just feels like it's one long story. The first thing that drew my attention to that was the fact that it started raining immediately. And initially, the first time I saw it, I thought, well, it's always freaking raining. And then it dawned on me, it was like, well, this story is kind of happening throughout the course of maybe 2 weeks or so, which is a cool thing. I really like that element.
Well, and it fits the noir thing again, because it's usually raining. But if the story is contained within a couple weeks like this, then it works for the story as well as it's a style choice.
John's still on the run. He ends up going to this library where he's got this stash of goods that he left for himself at some point in the past. He runs into someone that's obviously aware of the open contract on his head, and he's ready to cash in. And there's another great fight scene with John Wick and Ernest the Giant.
Ernest the Giant, yeah.
John and old Ernie, they're getting into it, and John ultimately takes him out with a book. I've never seen anything like that before. I mean, he kind of beat him up with a book and ultimately killed him with it. And the cool thing that I like about John Wick is the series is, I mean, he takes just enough collateral damage to make it believable. In this particular scene, John takes a cut on the shoulder and kind of nicks an artery. So he goes to see this doctor, who also was aware of the contract.
No, you shouldn't be here. Hour's almost up. I can't. I still have 5 minutes. Please.
He was kind of the only one in the film that I thought was actually loyal to John.
And then we see how loyal of a friend he is.
Yeah. He takes 2 bullets, and it's his idea. I mean, I remember thinking to myself when I first saw this, how easy would it have been for this dude to just say, hey, yeah, that medicine's on that bottom shelf, and then put one in the back of the head, $14 million richer. But he didn't do that.
Nope.
Instead, he takes 2 gunshot wounds and wishes the guy good luck.
John makes his way to some kind of, I think it's an antique gun and like a weapons
museum or some conservatory or something.
Yeah, lots of old guns, lots of old knives and things. And he puts together a gun, which is part of the double meaning of the title Parabellum. And then there's this really great fight scene between him and a few of these assassins that are after him. What's so cool about this is not only is the knife fight really unique and entertaining to watch, but they do unique things within the unique fight. So they don't just keep it with knives, they go knives and axes. It just really dawned on me a lot in this movie with each fight, how different each one is and how unique it is, even from the last John Wick film.
Yeah.
And speaking of changing things up for fight scenes, the very next fight scene, we have John Wick using horses as a weapon.
Yeah, 2 guys got bucked with a horse. What other film are you going to see that kind of thing in?
Then he goes and he ties, the horse reins around the guy's neck and he drags him off.
Oh,
and
yeah.
When the fight's over, what does he do? He's on one of these horses riding throughout the city like a boss. I mean...
dragging a guy behind him.
Right. And then not only that, now we've got motorcycles come up beside him. I'm just imagining writing this script, going like, how much crazier can I make this? What can I have John do before they fire me? Because it's too far.
Now we're to a point in the film where we're expanding upon the world that John Wick comes from, and specifically his roots. They go to what appears to be like a theater where there's a bunch of ballerinas dancing. There's a shot of one of those ballerinas, and you see on her back she has a similar tattoo to what John Wick has on his back. So that kind of like gives you this feel like this is where he comes from.
We even get that really simple line, the director, Angelica Houston, she says, "Does this bring back memories, John?" As they walk by those guys wrestling and stuff. They don't have to get into a bunch of exposition to tell you pretty much everything you need to know.
She's kind of pissed at him. What makes you think you can come back here and I'm going to help you after all the things you've done in the last 2 weeks?
This is when it's revealed what the rosary is, the ticket. So it's kind of like the markers, only this is with his clan, the Belarus, I think he calls it. I wanted to mention, too, that I felt Keanu Reeves' acting in the second film was a little subpar. In this film, I felt his acting was pretty top-notch, and this scene in particular stood out to me.
Yatitja Belarusi. Sirta istvaibo plemini. Ti должна мне помочь. You are bound, and I am owed.
Of course, he talks her into it. She gives him safe passage to Casablanca.
And the contract's still open, so there's still people trying to take John Wick out. So we go from the ticket, now we're moving on to the marker. Who's the other half of the marker? And that is Sophia.
We have a very desperate John Wick in this film because he is going from person to person. Whoever owes me whatever, I need to cash in.
Right.
We haven't seen him this desperate before.
John convinces Sophia to take him to the second Game of Thrones star that we see in this series.
Kind of funny.
It is kind of funny. First we see Theon Greyjoy, and now we see Bronn, the Master of Coin.
And he's kind of the master of coin.
And he's kind of the Master of Coin in this movie.
We do learn a little bit about the markers, where they come from, where the coins come from, just a little bit, enough to get us interested for more later. But they go to him because we learn, of course, there's another step. It's the high table is not really the highest.
There's someone above the high table.
Yeah, there's the elder. John figures I can get out of all this if I can get to him. So Coinmaker Bronn gives him the information, and just as Sophia and John are walking off thinking, oh, that was a nice thing for him to do. No,
No, you owe me. You owe me now.
You have received a great gift. I have hosted your friend. What do you offer in return? I will keep it.
Excuse me?
This will be my gift. Surely it's the least you can do.
No, you cannot keep my dog.
Very well. And I will kill it.
And they get away.
Another awesome action
Yeah, they got to
sequence.
get out of his lair.
Yeah.
So all of his men are coming after them. This time, the action sequence uses the two dogs.
And it was really cool to see Halle Berry in that particular role. I don't think I've ever seen her display that much physicality on screen.
She's really good in it, and the dog's just give it an added, because again, it could have gone into just the two characters shooting guns and beating people down, but nope, we've got the two dogs too. Not one dog, we got two dogs.
Yeah, it was really kind of cool to see John Wick have an ally for the first time.
Yeah.
3 allies, actually. Now we're in the desert trying to find the Elder. And I guess the Elder is going to find John once he walks enough amount of time. It kind of reminded me of that Spaceball scene for some weird reason. I connect weird dots sometimes, but it reminded me of Lone Star and Barf walking through the desert.
It made me think of that. I can't help it.
I don't know why, but yeah. So that's where we're at. We're walking through the desert, and hopefully this guy just kind of finds us.
Yeah, it's really far-fetched, and for me, it's the one thing in the franchise so far that I'm kind of like, that's really pushing it for me as far as believability.
I'm not going to argue with you too much on that. I get exactly what you're saying. I just kind of wanted to get to the Elder.
And the exchange, once she gets to the Elder, is really, really great acting between the two of them. His point, of course, is to get out of this mess, but to do that, he's going to be under the high table and under their command, but he's really kind of a servant of the Elder at this point.
Not only does he have to give the guy his finger, but he's also got to kill for him for the rest of his life.
His whole reason for living is just so he can keep his wife alive, basically, because he's alive.
In his mind, yeah.
His first contract is you have to go kill Winston because he's out of favor. He let John go with some warning.
A lot of people are mad at Winston.
Right, and so a major character in this film we haven't even mentioned yet is the adjudicator.
Yes.
And wow, do I hate this chick.
And to me, that's kudos to her performance because you're supposed to hate her.
She was sent by the high table to make Winston accountable for his crimes. More than John, even. She is after John as well, because obviously he's on the run. But she shows up initially because she's after Winston.
Yeah, she puts Winston on notice. Hey, man, you got 7 days to get ready to hand over the reins of your New York Continental.
He's not expecting that because he thinks he's above it all, which he's not. So now he's angry.
Oh, you can take the Continental, I've no doubt about that, but keeping it, that's a different matter entirely.
My allegiances run way beyond this building.
We are High Table.
And we are New York City.
Ian McShane is amazing again in this film.
He is.
He might even be the best in this film out of all three, possibly.
And another thing we kind of glossed over was the adjudicator did go and recruit who was supposed to be the John Wick killer, I guess. He's like the master assassin. That's the number one guy that's coming to take him out on top of everybody else that wants to get him because of the $15 million contract that's on his head. John Wick's been tasked to kill Winston. Winston is still trying to figure out how he's going to deal with this adjudicator situation, and the adjudicator has tasked Zero, the sushi chef, to kill John Wick.
So we have all these people after John Wick, and this assassin group finally catches up with him in a train station.
Stick together, kids. Make sure you're holding the hand of the person in front and behind you.
See? That's why you're special, John Wick. I wouldn't have stopped.
Just one line to tell you exactly who John is, and then in this case, who John is versus who Zero is. John's making his way to the New York Continental, and he gets to the steps and literally goes, base, like when you're a kid, that's pretty much what it is. And then the concierge comes down and tells Zero, don't even think about it.
You're going to be in the same boat as John if you do.
They bring him in, and we get a kind of funny moment between Zero and John where we find out Zero's a really big fan of John's, and they play him like a fanboy.
I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. I'm a huge fan. John Wick. And so far, you haven't disappointed. Is that the dog? He likes you. Oh, me? I'm more of a cat person myself.
I wanted to take this guy a lot more seriously. He had the right demeanor and menacing mannerisms about him, but it was just like when he started talking and tried to deliver these lines, and then some of them were jokes, and it was like I got to a point where I just stopped taking him seriously. I wanted to feel like he was potentially John Wick's equivalent, and this is a big hurdle for John to overcome. But I didn't feel that way with this guy.
They should have kept it down to 2 scenes instead of dragging the joke on for the rest of the film. Yeah. So this initial scene where Zero kind of breaks character a little bit, I thought that was played really well. And then I think that's where it should have been left, and not bring it up again. Other than later we get the 2 fans of his that are fighting him in 2-on-1.
And they essentially do the same joke.
Yeah, but it works. It would have been a good continuation of that joke. But I think they go back to him, to Zero, being the fanboy after that. Not even one more time. I don't want it anymore. It felt out of place for this film, and I also felt his delivery was bad. So he was great when he wasn't delivering the jokes.
That is a very nice way of saying that he was great when he wasn't talking.
One of the lines that really bugs me is when the Continental is deconsecrated because the adjudicator shows up, and now the High Table is going to bring in people to take Winston down.
Now you can kill anybody you want.
Right, because he's not complying to her, what she's telling him. And so we're waiting for this to happen, and she turns and looks at Zero to let him know you can do whatever.
Green light.
Yeah, and he says like, cool, very cool, or something like that. And I'm like, no.
Right.
No.
That's exactly what I mean. It's like, now I just don't take you seriously anymore. You just seem like a big goofy doofus to me.
There was another thing with this character that bugged me too, when John's fighting off the last of these assassins in the final battle, and they go underwater for a little bit, and that was really well done. They're shooting at each other underwater and stuff. And when they come up, Zero's there. One of his students is about to kill John. Zero kills his own student and says, no, only my blade will kill you, John. Which in and of itself to me was too far-fetched, because why would he kill his own student for something like that? But even if I believe that, okay, let's say I'm good with that. After that, Zero's sending guy after guy after guy to John before Zero takes him on. Is their intent not to kill him?
Good point.
So,
you just wanted to soften him up for me or something?
Yeah,
why aren't you jumping in there?
Yeah, it didn't make much sense. So I thought that needed to be figured out a little better on the script stage. And that's not to say this last fight isn't great. It is. Each little group of assassins, duo or whatever that would come after him, were doing something different.
It felt like some of those fight sequences just lasted a tad bit too long for me. I think there was when he was fighting the 2 students before he eventually got to Zero, I was like, why didn't you just take those guys out like in 5 minutes? I felt like I was watching these guys fight for 15 minutes and I was tired, but no one else on the screen is. And that's the first time I felt like that in this whole entire franchise. So it was like, I get it. This is kind of like a staple of the movie, but let's move it along a little bit.
I think that 3 has gotten just a little bloated, so I hope they maybe scale it back and forth. I mean, we're talking maybe like 5 to 10%, just scale it back a little bit.
Exactly. We're not talking a ton.
Yeah, I think they've almost got the formula down perfectly, though, with 3.
I think the fight scene between the students kind of took away from the fight scene with 0. Yeah. I didn't enjoy it as much because I just saw him fight for 15 minutes with 2 other dudes. By the time he got to 0, it's like, whatever, man. Hurry up and kill the guy and let's get it over with.
0 dies. The adjudicator is kind of like, how about we parlay? And then we get the ultimate betrayal. Then Winston turns on him. This is probably the most far-fetched thing in the film. But he shoots John a few times. So he goes flying off the roof. He hits
like 2 or 3
fire escapes on the way down.
Yeah, and then the concrete ground after being shot 3 times.
And
he's alive.
Yeah, so he ends up getting rescued by Bowery.
Which is another one that's just kind of one on top of the other. I was like, John should be dead, and I think Bowery should probably be dead too.
Yeah.
He sliced him a good 7 times with an incredibly sharp sword that pierced everyone else's skull, but this guy's alive.
I just felt it was a little disappointing because they could have still had John fly out and land on the ground and have broken ribs and all that, but they showed him slamming back and forth, and I was like, that's a bit much. You have to really stretch your imagination a little further in this one to believe everything that's going on.
This is true.
Compared to the first 2.
The first 2 acts I enjoyed thoroughly, and then we get to the third one, I was like, it was just good enough, I guess.
What they did do a really great job of, and maybe this is the most important thing, is by the end, I want more John Wick.
The elder instructed John to take out Winston, and now he's got all the motivation in the world to make that happen moving forward because there's the ultimate betrayal that he didn't see coming.
The ending's so great.
Let me ask you, John, how do you feel? Because I am really pissed off. You pissed, John? Are you? Yeah.
John Wick 3 was another great installment into an already successful franchise. It's very fun to watch. I think they pulled it off once again. There are a few nitpicky things, probably a few more than I would have had in films previous. I have no big qualms about it. I enjoyed watching it and I want to see more moving forward. So I'm going to give John Wick 3 4 out of 5 shiny ball heads.
The look and feel of John Wick Chapter 3 is astounding. I think they just did an amazing job with not only the way the colors are used, but also just the way music is used. And the soundtrack, the score on this film needs to be mentioned because it's really, really good. There's a ton of action, maybe even a little too much, but at least in this series, whenever there's action, you're seeing something that you've never seen before. It's always trying to be a step above just being a plain old action movie that you can see any old time. So I really admire it for that. And I would give John Wick Chapter 3 a 3.5 out of 5 shiny bald heads. Last time on the couch, we reviewed John Wick Chapter 2. So if you missed it, now's a great time to check it out. And don't forget to check out our original John Wick review. If you enjoy what we're doing, please hit that like button and subscribe. To receive alerts when new videos are posted, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thanks for joining us on the couch.